Hello and good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are around the world, and welcome to today's Postgrad Insight session. Over the last month, we've been very lucky that we've been graced by Cardiff University, Glasgow Uni, various hosts of different unis all over the UK, explaining why international students all over the world want to come to the UK and study at their university, whether it be a school or the institution as a whole. Today, we are joined by the University of Oxford Business School, Saïd Business School. They're going to be talking you through the next 15-20 minutes. A reminder that today's session is live. So if you have any questions at all, please put it in the Q&A or the chat facility. It'd be great to hear from all different nationalities, to say hi, to see that you're all involved. If you are watching on social media today and it is linked through to Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, please put your questions in the messenger facility to Postgrad Solutions rather on the post, because we will not see that. But for now, I'd like to hand you through to Liam. Liam will be taking you through the next 20 to 30 minutes, and I'll see you for the Q&A at the end. Liam, show's yours.
Thank you very much, and hello to everybody that's joined us today. It's really great to have you with us. I'm going to spend about 15-20 minutes talking through a few slides that we've got prepared. We're then going to bring on some alumni from the program that we have at the school to talk through their experiences. And obviously, any questions that you have, if you start sending them through now, we'll get to them either towards the end in the formal Q&A session, or as they pop up, if they're relevant to what we're talking about in the moment, we may get to them straight away. So to begin with, my name is Liam. I am the Associate Director for the MBA Recruitment and Admissions team at Saïd Business School, the University of Oxford. This is the full-time MBA that we're talking about. It's a one-year program. There's a slight variation to that one of our alumni later on will maybe talk about in terms of the 1+1. That's a 2-year program, but for most of the slides today, we're talking about the full-time 1-year MBA at the University of Oxford. I think if you think about what does Oxford look like, if you Google Oxford, if you go to anywhere that has like postcards of Oxford, this is probably a picture that you're quite familiar with. This kind of captures the essence really of what Oxford is in terms of the city of dreaming spires, as it's affectionately known. In this picture, you have the Radcliffe Camera, that circular building at the front. You have the Bodleian Library just behind that. Just behind the Bodleian, you have the Sheldonian Theatre, where you matriculate and you graduate from the program. And then the rest of the picture is kind of dictated by these colleges, and the college life and the experience of being in an Oxford college while being a member of the MBA and studying the MBA is a real bonus, and one of the experiences that I think really sets this business school apart from other business schools that you might be interested in, or other MBA programs that you might be interested in. This is the business school itself, so straight away you can kind of see a little bit of a juxtaposition between the tradition and the architecture that you see in the center of Oxford University's ecosystem. But this is the department that runs the business program, and this is where you'll be spending your 9 to 5 working day. Your lectures will be here. There'll be some self-study areas. There'll be some group study areas. There's a library on site. Eating and dining facilities and faculty offices are all in the business school. These two pictures are really designed to give you a bit of a glimpse into kind of both sides of your experience and your life as an Oxford student. A lot of people ask my team and me, the biggest question is, why would we do a 1-year MBA? For people in the audience may know this already. Traditionally, an MBA is a 2-year program. A lot of European business schools will condense that down to maybe a year, some maybe a year and a half, and occasionally you'll get maybe a 24-month program here in Europe as well. But certainly in North America, it's a 2-year program. The main benefits of it being a 1-year program can be seen on the screen. You get back to your career more quickly. You get back to your earning potential, which hopefully should be elevated now after your success on your course more quickly. It's less in terms of tuition that you pay for a 1-year program. But there are some caveats to this that are worth thinking about on a 1-year program. An MBA is meant to be transformational, both in terms of your career, but also in terms of you as a person. And when we speak to the alumni later today, hopefully that's something that they will echo. But if you're looking to try and transform too much too quickly, a 1-year MBA might not be the right program for you. So it's very important, if you're thinking about, well, where do I want to do an MBA and what do my results after the MBA, what do I want them to look like? It's very important for you to ask yourself the question, is a 1-year MBA enough time to make this career pivot or this career acceleration that I'm looking for? And it may be that it's not. And that means that we may be not the right school for you, and you might need a school that has a longer program. Having said that, we have lots of people that successfully come to Oxford do the 1-year program and change their careers dramatically. So it's definitely not impossible. It's just something to bear in mind when you're making your decisions about your target schools. This is an overview of a bit of a snapshot of what the 1 year looks like. We have some strange traditions in Oxford. One of those traditions is how we name the academic terms. So we call it Michaelmas, Hilary, and Trinity, and you can see roughly on the screen when they take place. So Michaelmas is term 1, starts in kind of October, goes through to Christmas, and so on. Everything that is that kind of orangey red color is a core module. These are the fundamentals of business. This is what you would expect to learn on an MBA. And this is what you'll learn really no matter where you go on your MBA program. All the schools, the main content of the MBA is fairly similar. One thing to notice here is that we've made quite a big change this year. This is the first year that we've done this. We've stopped teaching the core modules a little earlier in the second half of the year. So you'll see in Hilary, those orange, those red letters, the words, they come to an end, and the word elective takes over. And that is really when you start to personalize and build your own academic journey through the curriculum, which means that you can not really specialize. We don't have an MBA in finance or an MBA in consulting. You don't have that on your certificate. It's just an MBA, but you do get the chance to think about, well, what particular sector do I want to work in? And therefore, what particular electives can I take that allow me to develop in a way that gets me ready for that career more than maybe some of the others do? And the change we made this year was that we've gone from kind of a 60% curriculum that is core and mandated to you, and a 40% elective where you can build your own journey. And we've flipped that essentially, and it's now a 40% core and a 60% elective. So you do more electives than before, you start them earlier on in the year, which gives you access to that flexibility and that kind of customization much earlier in the year. There are a few things that happen throughout the entire year, some co-curricular projects you can get involved with. The finance lab is designed to get you into investment banking or private equity in a more practical way. The consulting development program gives you access to a range of seminars and workshops and activities that get you ready to be a consultant post-MBA, should you want to. And then the impact lab is a workshop series that's designed to investigate the impact you can have through business in the wider world. That's for entrepreneurs, that's for intrapreneurs, that's for people looking to work in maybe corporate social responsibility within a large multinational. It doesn't have to be somebody who's got his or her or their own business looking to change the world. You can be working for someone like a Coca-Cola or a Google or a Deloitte and still want to have that kind of impact. And that impact lab is for everybody. And then maybe a couple more things on this slide. One thing that underpins your journey throughout the year is this talent development program on the bottom of the screen that is run by the careers team and investigates a little bit about your softer skill set, right? So you're learning the fundamentals of business. You are becoming academically very strong. You're learning the technical knowledge of how to run a business and profit and loss statements and marketing and accounting and organizational behavior and all those things that you can see in that red color. But at the same time, we're hearing from companies that when they hire MBA graduates, they want people that can do all of those things, of course, but they want people that can also effectively speak in public or go and sell the idea of doing business with future partners or clients or stakeholders. Maybe they need to manage large and diverse teams and they haven't really done those things before in their career so far. The talent development program will assist you in learning those kind of softer skill sets as well. So that when you graduate, you have the technical know-how of how to run the business, but you also have the practical skills to be able to put that in place together so that you can get out to the big wide world of business and be effective both in a personal sphere, but also as a technical expert as well. The final thing just to mention on this slide is probably just that long vacation. That's what we call the summer period. It is a full year. It's 12 months. You join in September, term starts in October, and then from July and August, you have a choice of 3 things. You can stay in school and do extra electives. And if you actually count the number of the times elective appears on the screen, you can do, everyone does 10, but you can do 2 more in the summer if you want to. You can do 12 electives. You can do a consulting project and get out into the world and act as a consultant, or you can do an internship in a target industry or a target company that you are looking to maybe secure a role post MBA, and that internship is your foot in the door. And you do one of these three things. And then after that has finished, you come back to the school for 1 week in September, and that completes the full annual cycle. And then you graduate. We call it capstone. You have a week where you say goodbye to your friends and your colleagues, and you go and graduate and get the job that you're looking for. This is just a slide that shows some of the electives that we have on offer. This is not all of the electives. And the caveat here is that these can change each year as electives become maybe less relevant to modern business, or they become less popular and taken by fewer students. We'll have those replaced by more relevant and popular electives. And if you're looking for a complete list of electives that are available to the class that's just started in October this year, on our website, you'll be able to find a full list of everything that's on offer for this year. So if there's something on here that you think that looks really interesting to me, then without wanting to put anyone off applying, of course, that there's a chance that that elective may or may not be there at the time that you come to join the class. So keep in touch with us. We can tell you what we're looking at in terms of what might be changed, what's becoming less popular. Do we think it's still contemporary and relevant? Is it likely to be taken off? But on the whole, these are the ones that are the most popular and the most commonly chosen when people get to choose and personalize their learning. Just a little bit about the MBA class profile. This is the class that's just graduated. So they left in September, just gone. The new class is slightly bigger. It's got 348 rather than 334. But the rest of these numbers don't really ever change. The average work experience we have is always around 5 or 6 years. This is a master's that is post-experience. So we look for people that have been working out there already, have 2 years of experience that they can come to the class and contribute things to the discussions. This is not the kind of master's degree that you would go straight into from an undergraduate degree. We can talk a little bit about individual circumstances, but on the whole, we look for a minimum of 2 years of work experience. The age, therefore, of the average student on the MBA is around 28 to 29, but the age range will go anything from kind of 24 all the way through to someone in their late 30s when they join the MBA, and everyone is welcome. There's no minimum age requirement, although that 2 years of work experience kind of does suggest you have to be a certain age or have certain experience. And there's no maximum age requirement, although we'll have a conversation about whether this might be the right course for you if you are getting beyond that average years of work experience, because one of the things you should be asking yourself as a candidate is, if someone has only got 5 years of experience, but I'm already quite senior in my career and I have 15 years of experience, what can I really learn from people who are maybe 10 years my junior? I should be looking at other programs that have people of equal experience in there with me, so I'm all along with my peers and I can learn from the class as much as I can learn from the faculty, as that's a really important aspect of what we're trying to do at the school. One thing just to talk about diversity, if you're thinking about an MBA and you speak to your target schools, every one of us will say, but look how diverse we are. It's a very diverse class. And to some extent, that's very true. But please don't fall into the trap of being impressed and wowed too much by your target school saying, look how many nationalities we have. If I go back one slide, look how many nationalities we have. Look how international we are. They're metrics that every business school uses. But every European school for the MBA is very internationally diverse. LBS, London Business School, will probably have more nationalities than that. INSEAD in Paris will have more nationalities than that. So being internationally diverse is great. It's important. We want you to be able to work alongside and collaborate with people from all over the world. I think that's what you want for yourself as well. But diversity is such an all-encompassing word. It can't just stop at look how many nationalities we have. So one thing that I think we are very good at is bringing together a group of people that are professionally diverse. And by that, I mean, most people coming into an MBA have their sights set or already have experience in finance and consulting as employment, as a sector they work in or they want to work in. And those two schools that I've mentioned, LBS and INSEAD, they're incredible schools. LBS is very well known for finance. And if you're thinking about a finance career, LBS should be on your radar. And if you're thinking about a consulting career, INSEAD should be on your radar. They're both incredible at what they do, but they're well known for those sectors and those outputs. And so if you're in a classroom and a study group with maybe 5 or 6 people and you go around the table and say, oh, well, Liam, how would you approach this problem? And how would you approach this problem? my suspicion, and it is just my suspicion, folks, is that at LBS, you'll have people that come from it from a finance point of view because that's what they know. And at INSEAD, you'll have people that come from it from a consulting point of view because that's what they know or that's what they're looking to get into. And all of a sudden, that conversation becomes a little homogenous because everyone has the same way of approaching the problem. Everyone's been trained the same way. Everyone's been working in the same way. And so one aspect of diversity that I think we're very good at, because we're known for, as a school, not for finance or for consulting specifically, we are very good in those areas, but we're not famous for one particular output. We attract a wider range of backgrounds. And so you'll still have finance and consulting professionals in your class with you, of course you will. But we'll have people that work in healthcare, or people that work in the sports industry, or people that work in education, or for large NGOs, the World Bank, the World Food Programme. We'll have people that have worked in political office before they joined the MBA. We have Olympic athletes often on the MBA. And so all of a sudden, you go around the study group in your room and ask people how they would approach things. And I think the answers are slightly more diverse. And I think if you're looking to grow your mindset and approach things in a different way and learn how to do things differently in your professional life, being around people that do things differently is one of the fundamental things that you should be looking for. And that is what Oxford is very good at, because we attract all of these different professional walks of life and bring you all together into this kind of melting pot of the MBA at the school. Got just a couple of slides about application requirements and deadlines. There's nothing that's going to be a surprise here for you. I would say if you're thinking of an MBA, if you're researching what you need to do to apply to an MBA, all of these things will be, okay, that's what I was expecting, I would imagine. Just a few things to say. The GMAT or the GRE, we have no preference. That's a question we get a lot. You can take either one of those tests, and I think they're both slightly different from each other. And my advice would be find the one that suits your strengths in the best way. Find the one that gives you the best chance of success in getting the score that you think you're capable of. If that's the GRE, great. If that's the GMAT, also great. We have no preference whatsoever. We do look for a couple of references. One of those probably should be a professional reference from your career so far. The other one can be academic. If you still have a good relationship with maybe a faculty member or a tutor or a lecturer from your undergraduate or your already master's degree, but one of them should certainly be professional, please. And then we have one supporting statement, which is just 250 words and essentially asks, is there anything you would like the admissions committee to know about you that we can't find in your application already? And it's a chance for you to set yourself apart from the crowd. You probably won't be surprised to hear that it's a tough program to get into. We have a lot of applications. And so we're looking for people that can bring something different and unique to the cohort to reinforce the point I just made about professional diversity and different ways of thinking. And if it comes down to, in a very dramatic example, if it comes down to we have one space left and there's two candidates left to give it to, someone who's been able to demonstrate how they're unique and how they can bring something to the cohort that other people can't is more likely to get that spot, regardless of their academic results or their GMAT or their GRE scores, because we're trying to build a group of human beings that is the best group we can put together. We're not necessarily trying to find the people that have the highest GMAT scores. And that might be a little bit of a misconception that some people think about business school. And honestly, some business schools do care mostly about high GMAT scores. And we care about them. We want you to be academically strong. We are the University of Oxford. We want you to do well in class. You have to be able to handle the rigor of the course. Your GMAT or your GRE score is important. But on its own, it won't get you that spot if there's only one spot left and your supporting statement hasn't been as effective as the person that you're up against. So that's something probably worth thinking about as well. We generally have multiple applications that you can apply in throughout the year. We only have one intake, and that is a September intake. So every September, the class starts. You'll notice here, for example, so in September of this year, we already had stage one. People could apply for September 2025. They were applying before the new class had even started. So my team and I are already looking for next year's class before this year's class has really even joined. And so we're acting kind of a year in advance. So all of these deadlines will give you the same joining date of September 2025. If you're looking for a September 2026 or 2027 start date, generally speaking, applications open up a year ahead of time. So you can apply in 1 September to join the next, or you can apply in any of these stages throughout the year to join in that September. Obviously, the first two are shaded out in red because they've passed, and we have stage 3 coming up just next week, a week today, in fact, is our third deadline. I'm going to anticipate a question here in case this comes up later. There's no real benefit to applying early in terms of admission onto the program. I would say as long as you're applying by kind of no later than January, your chances of admission are the same. By March, the class is beginning to get a little bit full. And so because of that, we'll then start to have a bit more of a competitive process because there's fewer spaces in the class left to give. But in terms of admission onto the program, apply early if you're ready, don't wait. But at the same time, don't rush your application just to fit into a stage 1 or stage 2. My overarching piece of advice is just apply when you are at your strongest and you've had enough time to get the GMAT or GRE score that you want. You've had enough time to really finesse your supporting statement. You've had enough time to speak to your referees and understand that they're saying the right things about you. These are all kind of time-consuming activities, and applying to a business school is a big undertaking. You want to make sure that you put your best foot forward, because I would imagine the feeling of regret if you aren't successful and you think, if I'd just taken another month and spent more time doing this, I may have had a stronger application. That feeling of regret, I think, is one worth avoiding if you can. So apply when it's ready for you. My advice would be don't wait longer than January. This is the penultimate slide. It's just a quote from our dean, and it reinforces that point that I was talking about before, where we don't want to be known for one particular output. We want to be known as a school that generates and trains and produces future leaders that understand that doing well in business and being commercially successful is very important, but at the same time, the responsibility you have as a future leader to take your knowledge and your level of seniority and the influence that brings and making decisions that are for the good of the community, for the good of the region, for the good of your workforce can happen at the same time. It's not make the shareholders happy and make the workers miserable. Like, you can do both things at the same time. You can make the shareholders happy and also do good in your community. And that's what we want people to really think about. That's the intersection of impact and business that the school kind of pins its flag to and has done for a number of years. If you have any questions about the MBA, if you'd like to speak to myself or my team, this is the email address to use. That was the final slide in terms of information we're going to give you. So if I can ask the members of the alumni community who have patiently sat in the background waiting for me to just finish talking, if you can come onto camera for me, please. I might just start asking a few questions and sharing some of your experiences. A little bit of background. I've worked at the school since October of 2016. I'll ask them to introduce themselves in a minute, but I'm going to steal some of Connor's thunder. Connor was the first person that I gave a tour of the school to when I started in this job. So I'm very thankful that 8 years later, he still likes me and likes the school enough to take out his time today to come and join us. Connor, if we don't mind, let's start with you. If you can maybe just unmute yourself for a second, introduce who you are, what year you graduated, where you work now, that would be really helpful. And then just ahead of time, maybe Zelda, you go next, and then Noose, you go third, and then I'll come back to me after that, if that's okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great to see you again, Liam.
You
My
too.
name's Connor, currently based in Toronto. So you have the lovely skyline of Toronto, which is unfortunately getting darker and darker as the days go by. I work at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. So we are the parent company of the Toronto Raptors, the Toronto Maple Leafs, Toronto Football Club, and the Toronto Argonauts. Prior to the MBA, I was working in management consulting, but always had a passion for sports business. And through my time at Oxford, graduating in 2018, I was lucky to transfer industries. Originally, I thought I'd stay in the UK for a little bit, but a really cool role came up back in my home city of Toronto. So post-school, jumped back on a plane over the pond back to Toronto.
Cool. Thanks, Connor. Hi, everyone. I'm Zelda. I am a much more recent graduate. I just finished the 1+1 that Liam alluded to earlier. So that's an MSc program combined with the MBA, which makes it a 2-year program. I did the MPP MBA on the Pershing Square Scholarship. And before the MBA, I was also in management consulting, and afterwards, I am working on my startup.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nous. I'm based in Côte d'Ivoire, Abidjan. I graduated in 2022, almost 3 years ago. Before the MBA, I was working in impact investing at a firm called INP. I was doing direct investment into SMEs in West Africa. After the MBA, I joined another firm, Nigerian firm, and I expanded their business in Côte d'Ivoire. But recently, I moved back to my former company in a new role, which is now to set up a smaller investment funds across Africa. Lovely to be here.
Thank you, everybody. Zelda, maybe let's start with you all. I'll kind of rotate the first person every time in the interests of fairness. So Zelda, maybe if you don't mind, and same question to the other two. So Zelda, then Nous, then Connor, if you don't mind. Let's start off with, what was it about the Oxford MBA, Zelda, in your case, the 1+1 MBA, that made you think, okay, that can be one of my target schools, or maybe that was the school that I knew I always wanted. Let's start there and see if we can go from there, please.
Sure. I think for me, I only applied to the MBA at Oxford. That was mostly because the 1+1 program, I think, is something that is truly unique. I started looking at the American schools, and for me to do the same MPP, so the Public Policy Masters, and the MBA would have taken me 4 years at many of the other schools, as well as so it was like that timing as well as the impact. So I've spent most of my life working on the energy transition, and I think being at a school that prioritizes both profit and impact, both through the policy lens as well as the business lens, was something unique to Oxford.
Great, thank you. New, same question to you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, same as I only applied to Oxford. I felt that there was an excellent fit with what I wanted to do. I was already working in impact investing, and for me, it was very important to be at a school that shared the same values, where I could meet people interested in the same values, where I could grow and be inspired also by the different experiences. And for me, another very important point was Oxford's focus for the African continent. I knew I wanted to remain focused on Africa and also share, a bit of the trends and opportunities that Africa had to offer. And I was actually the co-chair of the Africa Alliance during my time at Oxford. So it really filled that objective. So for me, it was a perfect fit.
I did an undergrad in business administration in Canada, and it was structured very similar to a North American MBA. So I felt like, having done that kind of experience, I was looking for something a little bit different. So I applied to a few different schools, all based in the UK. Went on a tour at a few schools. Liam gave such a good tour that it was a no-brainer that I needed to go to Oxford. But in all seriousness, I visited LBS, and the structure of Oxford being a broader campus and not just a business school, but the broader university infrastructure was really what sold it to me. Having the opportunity to be part of colleges and tap into different pockets of the university outside just a pure business school made Oxford the right fit.
No, that was far too kind. I remember that tour, and I was rubbish. It was like my third day on the job. So you're far too kind with your feedback, but thank you. We're very happy that you chose us in the end, despite my very amateurish walk around the building with you, I'm sure. But you did raise a good point. The college network, the infrastructure of the wider university, I think to some people who aren't familiar with kind of like a collegiate system, that can sometimes be a little bit of an alien concept. So Nous, maybe let's start with you, if you don't mind. Can you talk a little bit about which college you were in? And the name might not mean much to many of the audience members today, but I know everyone has a level of college pride that they feel about which college they were in. So let's talk about what college you were in first, and then maybe talk about how did it help, or how did it interact, or how did it engage with your MBA learning? Is it two separate experiences, or do they intertwine in any way at all, please?
My college was Green Templeton College. I did not know much about the college system or the importance of that when I applied, but I came to understand this well at Oxford. Green Templeton is the college that welcomes the most MBAs. So being there, you already have a lot of your community from the business school, but it makes it even more special that you can meet at the college. You have kind of the same atmosphere, only that you share this with more master students, and it's quite exciting. And it's a place where we could let go of our creativity. One key experience of the colleges at Oxford for me is the formal dinners. I absolutely loved formal dinners at my college, and I still think that Green Templeton has the more tasty food from all colleges. It's not one of the eldest, but it was quite recognized for that. So this is one of the bits of college pride that Liam was talking about. But generally speaking, being invited at other colleges by classmates, I think is one of the most interesting aspects of that college life, being able to share with them and also other people at Oxford. So I remember that very vividly.
Thank you. Connor, we'll go to you next because Zelda has a slightly different experience with her 2 years. So we'll go to her at the end. So Connor, can you talk about a little bit about your college? Where were you? What did you enjoy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was at Trinity College. I did a little bit of research before picking my college, and I wanted to select a college that didn't have a large MBA influence. I felt like, as I alluded to, part of the benefit of being in a broader university network is connecting with people that perhaps have a very different perspective on the world, or studying for 5 years on medieval pottery or classical music was a cool opportunity just to network, as Noose alluded to, at dining hall. Just a lot of interesting conversations that I don't think happen anywhere else in the world. So I also had the opportunity to live directly on site. So the photo that Liam showed, my bedroom was actually right behind the Sheldonian Theatre. So from a life experience being right at the heart of Oxford, it was really cool to wake up every day and feel immersed in the city itself, but also bopping into people in the hallways. Just was a more enriching experience.
I'm going to add that when I next show that slide, I'll say, so we have an alum, Connor, his bedroom just in the background there. I'm going to add it to my story, Connor. Thank you. That's good information. Zelda, your experience was a little different because you were there for 2 years. As you mentioned, the MPP first, MBA second. It's most common for people to stay in the same college for both years. I don't want to assume that you did. Was that your experience with both of those programs? You had the same college both years, or you changed?
I changed college, which was actually honestly a huge perk of the 1+1 that no one talks about, because I got to experience 2 different colleges. Just for anyone who's super lost on the college network, because I know I was when I joined, you go to school at Saïd every day, but college is where you sleep for most people. Most people do accommodation inside the colleges, although it's not compulsory. And that's like where you eat and sometimes party and play sport if you're that way inclined. For me, I did university college first, which doesn't take MBA students. I chose it mostly because of the location. I wanted to live in the middle of town in a share house, which was really fun. And then the second year I went to Christchurch, which is your classic Harry Potter college, of which the main perk is honestly in like the first term, people want to be your friend and come to college dinners with you because they think that it's a beautiful hall. And then they realize by the second term that the food sometimes is not as good as the GTCs out there, and you have less invites. But it's an amazing college as well. I'm very grateful to have done both. And I think you can't really go wrong. But if you do want any advice on which college to choose, I have thoughts that I'm very happy to share over LinkedIn if you message me.
Thanks. So thank you, everybody. It's just probably worth noting at this point, and Connor, and actually everyone alluded to this. not every college takes the same number of MBA students. So if you're in Queen Templeton College, where Noose was, GTC for short, they will consistently take maybe 60 to 70 MBA students. So if you're thinking, well, I want to really build those networks with my colleagues and my peers in a very strong way, and outside of my 9 to 5 working day in the business school that Zelda was talking about, I want to socialize and party and have dinner with and join a sports team with some of my MBA colleagues, then Green Templeton might be the one for you, because there's so many other MBAs in there. Connor, how many MBAs are in Trinity with you? 2, 3, maybe?
I think we had 5. We had a bigger year than normal for Trin,
Okay.
but I think there were 5 of us.
Yeah, and so if you're thinking, okay, well, I see enough of my MBA colleagues in my 9 to 5 working day, I get to make the friendships that I want to, but I want to take advantage, like Connor did, of speaking to those wider disciplinary, different types of students that are studying all of these weird and wonderful things at Oxford. Then maybe a college that takes fewer MBAs is the one for you, because it forces you to go and strike up these conversations with these other incredible students that are around the institution as a whole. And as Zelda mentioned, not every college will take any MBAs. And so I'm not sure if it was through choice, Zelda, that you had to move halfway, or because simply you couldn't stay there for the second year. Probably a little bit of both, I would imagine. If you're thinking of a college that doesn't take MBAs, then sadly, I'm afraid you will not be able to get into that college. We have about 40 colleges in total at the university. And as an MBA student, you have about 31 of those 40 to pick from. Okay, maybe what time are we on? We've got some time. Let me ask maybe one more question for everybody, because I'm not sure how long the answers will be, and I want people to be able to speak openly about this. Let's start off with Connor this time, if you don't mind. Connor, can you tell us, or tell the audience, please, a little bit about how you think, because you're the furthest out in terms of graduation date, how you think the MBA has helped you progress in your career in the biggest way, please?
Yeah, that's a tough question, Liam. I would say when you're going through the decision to do an MBA or not, you're often thinking about ROI on career advancement, salary. And I think, putting myself in that decision mindset 7 years ago when I was going through the process, your investment horizon is more than the 2 or 3 years post-school. I'm confident that day one out of school, I maybe didn't see the massive salary bump that others might, because I chose a pretty niche industry, and sport is not going to work in investment banking. But the number of conversations, the networks that I've built through Oxford or through Oxford alum have been massively helpful for me. I was actually just in London last week at a conference, and 4 or 5 people that I connected with who were in the process of trying to do business were all spurring from the Oxford alumni network. So it's been super helpful. The other massive perk is just a friend circle. I think when you spend a 1-year concentrated program where, as Liam alluded to, despite spending a lot of time in college, you're still spending a ton of time with your MBA classmates. I have a network of probably 15 to 16 people that I'm talking to almost daily. And it's weird how quickly you can build friendships in a condensed period of time. So I think both from a professional network, but also a personal network, even if the ROI on salary isn't there for me yet, I'm confident it will come at some point. The ROE of return on experience is massive.
Great, thank you. I'm also stealing the ROE. Connor, I hadn't heard that before today. That's now my new favorite phrase. Thank you. Zelda, it's a different story for you. Zelda, you've only just graduated, and so you don't have that kind of career to look back on yet and see, how did the MBA help me do this? So slightly different question for you, if you don't mind. What do you think is maybe the top 1 or 2 things, if you'd like to, the top 1 or 2 things that you will take away from the MBA that will be your fondest memory? Let's go with that one, if that's okay.
Oh, fondest memory. I thought we were going to do full tech. Maybe I'll start with a more serious, like academic takeaway, and then dive into a fond memory. Do an ROI and an ROE.
Nice.
On the ROI, I think for me, especially the 1+1, it really just gave me an understanding and a perspective of how the whole ecosystem of the world fits together. And that sounds massive, but it was things like understanding in public policy how the central bank sets unemployment versus interest rates to balance those 2 things. And then sitting in on a private equity class and understanding how the tax implications from certain governments set their their strategies moving forward, and how they do their calculations on different investments based off different tax. So like all of those things, how the public policy fits in with the business lens and fits in with impact, was a level of understanding that I definitely didn't have before the two programs, and I can't imagine getting that easily from somewhere else. In terms of the ROE, there's so many memories. I think for me, it was participating in college sport. So I picked up sport when I got to Oxford. I absolutely loved it, and it has seen me go all over the world. So I was most recently in China playing for Oxford, and I'm on my way to play for Oxford in Sydney. And so just that teamwork and that leadership that you get from participating in sport that you forget about as soon as you leave school, it's just really nice to have that back in my life. I also encourage you to do sport, everyone.
Zelda, what sport are you doing? Remind me.
Polo.
Okay, great. Had you done polo before you joined the university, or is it like you picked it up when you were here and then now you just found out you're amazing at it?
When in Rome, I picked it up when I was
Okay.
at Oxford. But yeah, I just really loved it and got really competitive.
Okay, and thank you. That was going to lead into my next question to Noose and Noose. I was kind of hoping you might be able to maybe, if there's one thing that you would recommend the audience do, it can be a specific thing like a sport that maybe you played or a society that you joined, or if it's just a general piece of advice, one thing that you would say. We get a question a lot in the recruitment and admissions team. Like, how on earth do you do everything that you want to in a one-year program in a collegiate system with all of these opportunities happening both in the business school and outside? So maybe let me frame my question in a better way for you. So how did you manage to concentrate on the work you needed to do academically and the career shift and transition and acceleration that you wanted, but also find a time to sample the wider delights of when in Rome, should I try polo like Zelda did? How do you strike that balance well? Because that's a question that I think a lot of people have for my team and for me.
Yeah, that's a very tough question. I think the answer to that is just to accept to have FOMO the whole year, to accept that you're going to miss out on a lot of things. And I spoke to many alums, and they told me the same thing. I did not understand the magnitude of that until I joined the program. And it's very exciting and a bit frightening at the same time, because there are so many things you want to do on different levels, and academical, social, leadershiping. I mean, for me, the leadership part of my year was amazing, and it's one of the takeaways. So there's a lot. You just need to accept, to be comfortable with the fact that, whatever you do, those are, experiences, and this is an exposure that you will have, even if it's for a short time. So just take advantage of it, just a tiny bit, and then, it's fine if you don't go to the depths of it. For me, the MBA was much more breadth than depth, and I'm very happy with that. If there's one thing that I'm absolutely happy that I did, and I recommend that everybody tries, is to do at least one trip with your classmates. It can be a long weekend. It can be one of those trips that, at some point during the year, there are organized trips by students, which have a specific name that I forgot. But Liam maybe help me out there. But
You're talking about the tracks.
Yeah, the tracks, exactly. Okay. So yeah, if you can do one track, that's amazing. I organized one track in my home country, and it was a very fun experience. We met people from the business community, and also artists, like a lot of people, and it was great. And I was happy to showcase my country to people. But I know that a lot of my classmates also loved traveling, and through Europe with classmates, and you do create a very strong bond. We also have some of the trips that we did for MBAT or other sports opportunities. So yeah, so I think those are great opportunities to even strengthen the bond and create good memories at Oxford. So I would recommend.
Great, thank you so much, Noos. Guys, just conscious of the time, I want to let's invite our host back. I know this is probably a Q&A session that we'd like to go through, so I don't want to take up too much time with questions that I'm asking you, so that the audience can have their questions answered. So over to you. Let me stop talking for a few minutes. You let us know what questions are out there, and we can see what we can do to answer them.
Thank you, Liam. Do you know, I've been watching that with great anticipation to begin with. So thank you to everyone for participating to begin with. I would have, one thing that struck me amongst the three alumni, if you don't mind me saying, is how much fun it seems like you all had whilst you were doing, whether you were on the 1 year, whether you were on the 1+1. You know, Leah mentioned earlier how diverse the courses are and how diverse the business school is. And we don't talk about the types of people, but the types of expertise that you find yourself following. How important was that? I mean, Zelda, you said, you know, you picked up polo, you're going all over the world. Connor, sounds like you've come over from Canada and had a great time. Noos from Western Africa. How important is that? And if I can start with yourself, Connor, that when you're an international student making that choice as to where to go, that it is actually fun. Yes, it can be a hard slog, but it's also about living there and having fun also.
Yeah, I certainly learned to live with FOMO early on, as Noos alluded to, but I think every night you had 5 or 6 options of what you wanted to do, one of which was sleep, which I rarely picked. But between social events, I did quite a bit of college sport, but nowhere near at the level of Zelda. Talks of Nobel Prize winners or celebrities at the Oxford Union. And then the last bucket, which I often neglected as well, the actual study component of doing your readings and homework, but balancing all that at the same time, plus being in Europe where you have the ability to hop on a plane quickly and travel. It was an absolute blast. Being a pretty big football fan, also the proximity to UK live sport was amazing for me. We did a couple trips down to Twickenham, saw a couple football games in London as well, and the train station is right next to campus. You can be in London in 48 minutes or something. So the opportunity to really explore the UK and the broader European continent is a pretty cool perk as well.
Noos, if I can move to yourself now, obviously your experience might be different, but of course it would be great to hear from you in terms of how your path progressed to the business school and afterwards.
Yeah, so I was in impact investing before, then I got the school experience, and what was very interesting is I was supposed to go back to my former company right away, but I actually the MBA empowered me to explore another option, so I went to work for another fund, and that was actually a very interesting path that I took. I explored my industry from a different angle, and I think it brought me a lot. It gave me also, I think, it put me in a better position, a better, just like covering more subjects, a more regional role than I would have done at my former fund. And what's funny is that I kept very strong bonds with my former company, and I came back at an even better position to a more exciting role. So for me, I may be back at my former fund, but the journey has been, really exciting, and it gave me a lot of confidence and a broader view of the industry that I already knew quite well, and also the fact that I did this MBA brought a lot of support from my peers. So yeah, that was extremely useful.
Thank you. And Zelda, onto yourself as well. I mean, I think you gave a glowing reference of make sure you do sport when you're there, because obviously it's a passion of yours, which is great. But how important was that? Facilities were there, presumably. I think Connor's alluded to the fact that train station's not far away. You've got facilities not far away, even if you've got to travel, presumably.
Yeah. I think overall Oxford was like the best 2 years of my life because of everything and the whole ecosystem. And yeah, sport was huge for me. Uh, the facilities at Oxford, at least for us, were amazing. And my college was able to offer sports funding. So if you are really interested in sports, definitely look through different college options in terms of that. I think one of the great things about that everyone else has already said is that London is so connected. I'm from New Zealand, which is literally the edge of the earth. And so being able to fly from Heathrow almost anywhere directly is a huge advantage, at least for me. And I think also not to be underplayed was the academics. Like I guess I've talked a bit about sport, but the academic side of the MBA was something that I really loved and really took a lot from. And I think that the professors at Saïd are fantastic and people that I have so far, only 6 months on, but lasting connections with.
Excellent. Thank you, Zelda. Liam, if I can bring you on at this point, a few glowing references for you in the last 45 minutes, which is great. Can I just get a few of your thoughts, if that's okay, Liam? Because a few of the questions that have come in probably are more towards yourself. And they are more generic, broad questions. A couple have come in about funding and scholarships. Now, presuming it's such a competitive program to get on, you've got to kind of handpick quite carefully when it gets to March, like you mentioned. Who do you want on the course? Who do you want on the program? Who's the best person for that? What scholarship opportunities do you offer? And do you offer the likes of Chevening, Marshall, Commonwealth, the global scholarships that we hear of?
Yeah, good question. I'll try and keep this as short as possible because to some extent, there's quite a lot of funding that we give out, and that is true. We say that to try and encourage people to apply, but then the flip side of that is that actually, in terms of the number of scholars we have each year, it's only roughly about 1 in 3. If we have like 340 students on the MBA, we'll probably have something like 115, 120 scholars. So I don't want to dampen everyone's spirit and enthusiasm, but it is really worth knowing that you need to have a plan to fund the MBA, which is a very expensive thing to do. You need to have a plan yourself to do that, just in case you don't get a scholarship. We'd love to give everybody a scholarship. That would be the dream. We don't have the funds to do that. And so we do have to be quite careful and to some extent, a little bit, we have to draw the line somewhere. Having said that, we have got full scholarships. So, for example, Zelda got the Pershing Square scholarship for her 1+1 experience, and that covers your tuition fees and a living stipend for both years of the 1+1. We have scholarships that are full for the MBA. We have scholarships that are partial for the MBA, and it kind of falls into two different pots. On one side, we have Saïd Business School Foundation, or SBSF. We love an acronym at the business school. We have SBSF money that we can control where that goes and who gets that. And we're looking at things like regional diversity. We're looking at things like gender parity. We're looking at things like academic strength. We're looking at things like, can we get enough people from enough professional diversity to talk about professional diversity? And so we'll look for certain sectors maybe to give that money to. Underpinning all of those things, though, is kind of undergraduate degree results, GMAT or GRE scores, and that academic strength and leadership that we talk about. The other pot of money is money that is donated to us by external organizations or partnerships with the school. Pershing Square is an example of this. We also have a Laidlaw scholarship or a SCOL scholarship for social entrepreneurs. And I can't list them all because it would take the rest of the session, but on our website, you can have a full kind of search engine of scholarships that are available. Now, the only thing to talk about here for the donations and the agreements we have with our external donors, they are looking for often a particular type of scholar themselves. They've given us the money, and so they tell us who they're looking for. And that can be gender, that can be region, that can be diversity in terms of professionalism and different sectors. But again, underpinning it almost always is academic strength. So my message to the audience is, while your GMAT score or your GRE score will not make or break your application to the program on its own, it will become quite important in those scholarship decisions. So if you're thinking about, do I apply now? Do I give myself more time to apply in the future, but take the GMAT one more time and try and nudge my score up a little higher? if you think you can do better on the GMAT that you currently have, then my advice would be try and do better on the GMAT if you think you can. If you've got to the score that you think that's my maximum score I can get, then apply and don't wait, because there are some scholarships where GMAT is less important. I think my overall message is everybody is eligible for a scholarship and everybody should be welcome to apply and feel that they can get into Oxford. It is competitive. It is hard to get in, but we want everyone to think that they can do it. But actually scholarships, unfortunately, don't go to more than maybe 1 in 3 people. And that range of scholarships will be anything from a Zelda, like 2 years of tuition covered with living expenses, all the way down to maybe a partial award for the MBA of £25,000 to £30,000. We don't really give out less than £25,000 because as tuition fees increase slightly, it becomes a bit more unaffordable for some people every year. So we used to give 10 or 15, but it's not really enough anymore to make a difference for people to be able to get here.
No, I totally agree. Okay, thank you. Again, more particular questions around English language requirements, IELTS, Cambridge, Pearson's language testing courses. What are the requirements? Specific questions come in saying, look, I'm in a job where I speak English.
Mm-hmm.
English is my first language, but I haven't got a test and I'm not from the UK. What are the requirements around that?
If you can, or if this person can provide a letter saying, look, my day-to-day company, my day-to-day professional life, my day-to-day work experience is fully conducted in English, then that can provide a waiver for the need to then give us an English test. Now, that letter should be talking about kind of those main aspects: reading, writing, speaking, listening. So you don't have to bullet point each one, but make sure your letter addresses how your work covers all of those areas. And so that person would not need to sit an English test because he or she, they can apply for a waiver, no problem at all. You can also apply for a waiver if you studied at degree level qualification that was completely taught in English within the last couple of years, and a letter from the university saying, yes, I can confirm that Liam studied here, we taught in English. That's enough for a waiver for that person too. If you don't fall into either of those categories and you don't speak English in your job, you haven't studied an English speaking degree in the last 2 years, then you probably will need to provide either a TOEFL or an IELTS score, and you can find the scores that we need on our website. But roughly speaking, IELTS, you need to have an overall score of about 7.5 and nothing lower than a 7 in any of the individual components. And for the TOEFL, we need a score of about 110, ideally overall. And we have minimum requirements, roughly at least like a 24 or a 25 in each of those 4 components there as well. The main reason for this is because the language of instruction on the MBA is English, and we want to make sure that you're able to kind of like keep pace in the classroom and also contribute to group discussions and work as part of a team. So your English language and your understanding of the English language has to be good.
Absolutely. And just one final question. I'm just conscious of time a little bit for those of you that are watching. I really appreciate your time. The final question from me would be around the use of artificial intelligence. Now, we all know the platforms that are available online now, and in a very competitive industry when it comes to MBAs. You know, it might be that you've got 5 students all with very similar academic background. When they're writing their personal statement, that is what's going to be important. And I think you alluded to it already, Liam, about how important it is to express where you want to be, you know, where you want to be in 10 years' time, how you intend on getting there. How important is that they make sure they are who they are, rather than using a platform that might make it sound better but isn't ultimately them?
Yeah, this is a really wise question, because to a lot of people, AI is the arch enemy of lots of things. But to admissions into a university, to people writing essays while they're at university, then it's a problem for some people, right? We only have that one essay, and I think my advice for that essay is to make it as personal as you are happy to share. Tell us about why you're going to do an MBA. Tell us about what's driving you to further education. Tell us about the career that you want. Now, if you put that into any of the options that are available online and get us to spit out something for you, I think the team is very good at recognizing that it's not really your writing. But then there's a real argument to be made that this is a tool that is going to be used in pretty much every professional walk of life in the future. And being able to use this tool in a way that is constructive and getting the results that you need might be in 3 to 5 years' time, maybe even sooner than that. It might be one of the things that certain employers are looking for when they graduate and they think about, okay, well, this person's finished their MBA. Let's hire the best person for this job. Part of this job involves utilizing AI. And so I'm personally, and the school as a whole, on the application, on the way in, I'm not against it. I think if you use it wisely, I think if you can use it in a constructive and a positive way, I don't think it detracts from your application, because if we have any doubts about who you are as a person, then we have the interview and we'll meet you either via Zoom, in person, in Oxford, in your city. We'll travel out to you. We'll meet you in person and we'll be able to understand who you are beneath what you've written, beneath what your GMAT score tells us about you. So there's always that extra level of human interaction that we've built into our process that is a bit of a fail-safe against people that are relying on like the chat GPTs of this world to write their answers for them. So I'm kind of on the fence. That I would think it gets used more than we realize, to be honest. I'm sure we don't recognize every single AI essay that comes in, but I'm also not that concerned that if people are using it for that one essay, that they're putting the wool over our eyes, because we'll see through it at the interview. We're very good at what we do. And I don't think it's a negative thing anyway. I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, it does, friend and foe. And I think it's a very current and relevant topic at the moment to finish on. So Liam, thank you for your time. Really appreciate that. Connor,
pleasure.
Zelda, and Noose as well. Really appreciate taking time out of your very busy schedules to spare this hour and to go through with potential students, just your experiences and what might lie ahead for them. So thank you very much. Anyone watching that has missed any of this, that does want to catch up, the email address is on the screen, oxfordmba@sbs.ilex.ac.uk. Reach out to Liam directly. I'm sure he won't mind you putting his name at the top. And if you have any questions related to any bursary scholarships, point it in my direction. My details will be on the follow-up email in the next 48 hours. But for now, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you again in the near future, and everyone else involved. We look forward to seeing you hopefully again next year for a roundup again. Thank you. Take care.